Hi everybody. Good evening. Today we are going to cover class 4 lecture session together with a tutorial for global communication. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you so much for listening. If you're listening to the recording, before that I would like to wish happy Chinese New Year to you and your family wherever you are. Please stay safe and be good. Okay, I'll be seeing you after the Chinese New Year break. Okay, so for class 4, we are covering on national and global news agencies. So basically, when we talk about, let me just share back the screen right here. Okay, when we talk about particularly national and global news agency, it's a news organization that is being recognized throughout the world. So how is it related to global communication? Let me just introduce you to the connection itself, right? So when we talk about global communication, so again, as I've said so many times to each and every one of you, when we talk about global communication, any global issues that pertains to any communication process or anything that is about information or communicating with another party or culture will fall under global communication. So for example, let's say you talk about how would you communicate with another culture, for example, from for a Chinese person from China to communicate with somebody from as me, Malay from Malaysia, and we communicate, and the communication process occurs. We develop a friendship, we develop ideas, we exchange point of view. That is a process of global communication, right? That as simple as that. But in a bigger scale, when we talk about global communication, it varies a lot. It can come in different kinds of contexts. For example, let's say through the internet, on K-pop, and you're from China, and to know something from Korea through the internet, it's information right there, and it is being conveyed to you through a platform. So that is what global communication is. You knowing the economy, status in New Zealand through media reports in China, through reading, for example, China Daily or watching CCTV would be a part of global communication, because you come out from your comfort zone, you come out from your country to know about what is happening, outside from your country through all these mass media platforms. Yeah. And when we talk about mass media platform, we remember I talked to you about the communication process itself, where when we talk about communication process, it has to be from a sender, point A, giving information to point B, and then it has to be through a medium. And with that, knowing about global issues throughout the world, might it be tourism, might it be about Marvel movies, might it be about music, films, health communication, it's always through a medium, and that's what global communication is. So to fit into our topic as of today about national and global news agency, I'll go for global news agency for today, whereby when we talk about knowing information throughout the world, whatever, where we are, wherever we are, it's through news reports. And even though we don't read newspapers anymore, we get information through the internet by reading news portals and so forth. So how would we get information about people from another country? It's through news reports. But how would you do it? So again, I would like to introduce you, when we talk about news reports, it comes through the industry of what we call journalism. whereby journalists, throughout the world who are responsible to cover that information, to cover that event, they are responsible to give out that information through the media organization. And when it's published through the news portal, then, it will be disseminated through the readers. So again, in different media organization, if you work for a local media organization, I'm going to give you an example, right? Malaysia, let's say you work in the Star, it's an English newspaper company. So sometimes when you are only local, you are not a global news company, it's hard for you to send people, all your reporters, all your journalists, to be outside, to go outside to cover news. For example, let's say from Malaysia journalists to cover news in Russia, it takes a lot amount of money to send a journalist. So what we do in the journalism industry is that we have global news agency throughout the world which are very renowned. These news agency, or what we call as big company and organization, they are very established, they have been there for such a long time, and they have huge amount of journalists, or what we call as correspondents, news correspondents or journalists. They have different names, and they are responsible to cover news throughout the world. So for example, I'm going to give you an example a little bit. So let's go to the next slide right here. So basically, a news agency is an organization of journalists established to supply news reports to news organization, newspapers, magazine, and radio, television. So again, when we talk about news service, how would you you have to be a media organization to subscribe to this news agency, because you have to pay amount of money, and then you can get the information directly. If you are an individual person, you don't work in media organization, but you would like to know directly news from the news agency, most likely you have to pay a little bit more. So let me go to the slides right here. Sorry for the disruption. We have, as I mentioned before to you in the previous class, we have Agence France Presse, or Agency France Presse, Associated Press, Reuters, and the least known, which is United Press International. So basically, in the global communication context, Agency France Presse, Associated Press, and Reuters would be the three main global news agencies that people should know, and that people would, as journalists, if you study journalism, you would want to work in this three global news agency, as they are very, very established and reputable. So moving on to the introduction of AFP, or Agency France Presse. It's founded in 1835 by Charles Louis Havas, and two of his employees, Paul Julius Reuter and Bernard Wolff, later set up rival news agency in London and Berlin respectively in 1848. So again, it comes back, when we talk about news and information, why is it important? Back then, not everybody could actually access information. Only people who are at the authority level. For example, if you're a political leader, if you're a religious leader, then you are able to have information. For a person who is as normal as, for example, like us, who wouldn't be able to, because information are only for people who could make decisions back then. So again, from time to time, I would like to again remind everybody that we are so lucky in the sense where we can have information. And with that, a little bit more, the establishment of the news agency was the most important development in the newspaper industry, and the growth of the newspaper was on the rise as rapid flow of information became possible with the help of news agency. So again, from time to time, people would want to evolve. Again, as I mentioned before, I think I haven't mentioned this before in this class, but what is constant in life will be changes, and people from time to time, they will like to evolve to become better. And with to become better, you have to have information, and with information, then you can decide what to do. Yeah. So with that, that's how newspapers and news stories were as important as ever in the global community, so that you know what is happening around your community. Then you could decide on one course of action, either you want to mix around with another culture or not. That depends on the information that you get, and with that, these information are being reported by the journalists. Yeah. And back then they don't call themselves journalists, they call themselves writers only. Yeah. And with that, when we talk about AFP, it's headquartered in Paris. President and CEO Emmanuel Hogg, 3,760 employees. And basically, when we talk about all these global news agency, they also cover war zones, and they also cover which country of news that they should report the news on. So for example, in 1852, so AFP, Reuters, and again AP are very, very are very competitive, in a sense where they are global news agency, and they want to get as many readers or as many subscribers to subscribe to their agency. So basically, all these three global news agency, excluding UPI, they sign an agreement. For example, in this part of war zone, if you have a journalist who cover on war zone areas, you can station here, here, and here, Reuters here and here and here, and we have another AFP here, here, and here, so that the coverage will be much more wholesome. You don't have the same amount of journalists reporting in the same area, so that and again, when we talk about this global news agency, is much more of a cartel, where because it has been that for such a long time, and it has been established in the middle of 18th century. So to have another news organization or a news company to be established as the three companies or organization that I mentioned to you would take a longer time. Yeah. So with that, again, let me just cover that in a bit. I will continue in a bit, and the slides, I will get back to you in the second recording, people. Thank you. See you in the second recording.